You're listening to Chillworthy,
a podcast where two best friends discuss mysteries, murders, and anything in between for your enjoyment.
So if you're ready to hear some chilling and unsettling cases, you're in the right place. Happy listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Chillworthy with Brent and Talia.
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
We're both
Happy
very
to
demure.
Yes. It is like not winter, I guess, but it's kind of feeling like a fall day today. It is so chilly and windy.
It is very
super
cold.
windy. I was going to say we're in our sweatsuits. One of us is. The other is dressed half for summer.
Right, half and half. Do you have any books to talk about?
I sure do.
Okay,
I've been
go
on
for
a
it.
bit of a roll. Thank you. Do you have fish facts?
No.
Well, then I think we should talk about other animals.
I don't have any fish
You
facts.
know what we could do? We could be like, we could ask each other what our favorite, not that we're pro zoo, but zoo animal, like what you would stereotypically
I'm sorry?
think of in a zoo, or like our favorite aquarium animal, or, let's do that.
Fine, but why don't you tell me about your books first?
Well, you have books too. I know you do. We talked about it last week.
Yeah, but this is going to be it. Wait, what?
I thought you had two.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Well, should I just go
Yeah,
then?
go
Because,
first,
okay, and
man.
I'm keeping an eye on the 15-minute marker.
Oh, I don't know why we
Because
have to set that.
Because we do. It's not a book podcast.
Ashley goes to me, do you have books to talk about this week? I said, I absolutely do. She goes, like, how many? And I said, 4. And she goes, then you should probably just do 2.
I think that's
I said,
great.
excuse me, I need to do them all. Only do 2. Get out of here. Both of you.
Well, that's fine, but just when we get to 15 minutes, we get to 15 minutes.
And then we have to do our animal questions.
That's all in the 15 minutes.
No.
So, all right. Yes, you're right. I did tell you I finished Witchcraft for Wayward Girls
I remember.
by Grady Hendrix, which was very good, 4.5 out of 5.
Wow.
Even though I don't really do stars.
Right, but for you to even put that out there, that's freaking high.
Yes, and I think it was primarily because I think I was expecting a different kind of book, more that like a book that's a little bit more up my alley, and it wasn't as
Creepy.
much. Well, I just felt like it would be a little heavier on the witchcraft and a little more like thrilling maybe. But
Not
it was
to
just
be-
I'm not even saying it there was certainly witchcraft, but it was just different, and I liked it. So
Good. You'd highly recommend.
I would recommend it, yeah.
That author is male, correct, Grady?
Yeah.
I'm almost certain there's another book floating around by him at the moment. I can like imagine.
There are 2 that I know of.
Yeah. Did you read the other one?
How to Sell a Haunted House, and that other one that I have on my shelf, the
It's like a black-
Southern.
Oh yeah, that's exactly the vampire
Yeah, but I forget Southern Book
guide
Clubs.
to vampire slang.
Yeah,
I don't think so. but-
something like that.
Yes,
though.
that's exactly what I'm thinking of. Scratch.
The Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slang, something of that nature. Which I
Yeah.
also, I think I liked this one more, but
Did you?
The other one was more horror based. Mm-hmm. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I haven't read the haunted house one because
Do you think
again,
you
I
will?
don't care for haunted houses.
Right. Not
Ghosts,
your
I
cup
don't
of
give a
tea.
shit. So,
Right.
and this is why I'm probably not going to talk about books for quite a while, because I'm diving into an entire fantasy series, as I told you, which came out, I want to say in 2006, but he's still writing it now. Mistborn.
I don't think when you told me about this, that I realized he was still writing.
I didn't know that either,
Yeah.
really. But he's just extremely, extremely popular in the fantasy franchise. And people have been talking about these books for as long as I can remember, obviously since they came out.
Right.
And just how incredible the fantasy world is and the world building and the magic system and all of this stuff. But like right off the bat, there's at least 7 books just in this storyline, but he has an entire universe of books. So I'm sure he has 15, 16 books maybe, and he's still going. So like,
Shit.
I'm not saying I'm going past the 7th book at the
Right.
moment. Maybe not even past the 3rd until I want to, because it's like a trilogy and then a quartet or whatever they call it.
Sounding.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so we'll see. But it's the premise of the book is basically he basically wrote a world where the bad guy did win instead of the good guy.
Sounds nice and different. A unique storyline.
Right. So it's like if Voldemort won at the end of Harry Potter instead, and like what the world looks like. And now there's sort of like a rebellion that's happening and they want to take back the world and stuff. But he's been in power for like hundreds of years at this point. And the people in this world, some of them have no powers. Most of them have no powers. But then there are people who can control some things. And then there's people who can control all things.
Oh, shit.
And the way...
Sprinkling of all sorts.
Right. And the way that the magic system works is like you have to drink metals. Like you'll put like lead shavings or steel shavings, tiny little shavings in your water, and you drink it, and then each different metal gives you a different ability.
Amethyst. No.
No. But so it's just like that. It's like one will give you like superior strength, but you only have enough of it in terms of how much you drank. And once it's gone, it's gone. So the magic isn't innately just in the people where it's like it's just an endless supply. It's like that's why it's like there's very strict rules, which, you know, so it's like soft magic is like Harry Potter. You can just do shit and it just works.
Right.
And hard magic is where it's like the rules are pretty fixed in place. So
This sounds a little complicated.
a little, but I mean, I'm like
Multifaceted.
halfway through the first book now, and it's I mean, the main character is learning about it as she's going, so it's like
How you're learning about it as the reader.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, okay, what are your books?
Well, real quick, I didn't read these, but speaking of what just like series and sort of like magic and fantasy world, I was just talking to someone and they recommended the Wayward children's
Oh, I did look
series.
that up. Yes.
Yeah, which you and I, when we were talking about it, neither of us had heard of it. And I guess, you know, there's several of them, but they are smaller size books, like, you know, lengthwise. But when I had looked them up, what did I say? That it's like children who have special powers, but then are then like thrust.
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought it was then they're
You
thrust
told me it
back
was the
into the
girls-
regular world. No.
You told me it was kids
Mortals.
that fell into a fantasy world and came
Oh, a
back.
portal. Like Narnia, we talked about. And I
Right.
said,
They don't
I'm
have
imagining-
powers. Yeah.
Oh, I thought they
Like
did.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yes. Right.
So you said it's about kids that go to a place like that, come back, and then they're having problems readjusting to the world after they've been to the other world.
Yeah, if we
Yeah.
understand correctly. Right.
Yeah.
You-
So it's like Alice comes back and she's having trouble adjusting to being in the normal world after she left Wonderland. I think that's the point.
And Narnia, Edmund, Lucy. God, I loved that. Oh, goodness. Yeah, so I want to check that out. I'm very, very curious about that. And I feel like I don't read a lot of fantasy, like very, very minimal. One of the ones I'm reading right now is considered fantasy. But and maybe I even talked about it. Do you remember it was Legends and Lattes and it was like a sapphic fantasy read, and like I want to say she opens up a coffee shop, and so this is the prequel to that, and it's called Bookshops and Bone Dust, I want to say. Yes. So it's good, very light read. I've been reading other stuff while I'm reading it, so I just renewed it through Libby for like I should be finishing up soon though. I mean, it's like a very easy, cozy read, and this one is set in like a coastal town, so it has like beachy vibes kind of. So it's cute.
Okay.
I'm also reading Lone Women by Victor Lavalle.
Okay.
Lavalle. It's one of the books of the month that I got like 2-3 years ago. Never read it. I think it's like 1912 possibly. And it's about a girl, a black family who has, what did I tell you? Plums. They have a plantation.
Right.
Yeah. And the book starts with this girl's parents. I don't think we know how old she is yet, or maybe we do. Either like late teens or early 20s, I would say. And it doesn't sound like there were any other children. I think it's just her. She's an only child. And the book starts out with like her parents are deceased and she's pouring gasoline on them.
Oh, right.
In the family home. They're like in bed and she's lighting it on fire and like leaving town. But the vibe that I'm getting from the description is not that she killed them, but she's like whispering weird stuff into the mom's ears. And so she ends up relocating. I believe this is in California. I might be mixing books up. And she relocates to Montana. So I'm very, very early on in it. Like I'm not far at all. But it was in the horror section, but I don't see how we're going to be getting there. But who knows? So I was going to suggest it to you, but I feel like, hold on to your hat for now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you'll be particularly into it. So I read Private Rights, which was one of the climate change ones by Julia Armfield. She's the author that wrote Our Wives Under the Sea that I had read.
Right.
The horror with the underwater, some monstery thing happened. No one knew. Excellent book. So same author. This one is basically like a King Lear spin, which I knew nothing about King Lear. Do you know that story?
Only by name.
It's like this father who has, I believe, 3 daughters. And I want to say it's like the ones who were like wonderful and selfless to him, he basically screws over, if I understood it correctly. This is kind of like a loose adaptation of King Lear. So this super successful engineer man who's the father of these 3 girls dies, and it's basically the aftermath of his death, and like they don't get along with each other and they have different mothers, and like it's a very kind of complicated like emotional story. But climate change is like, it's futuristic and it rains constantly now in the world, like, and it just shows how that has affected the world and how like things are breaking down because everything is so saturated. They've had to like housing and public housing in the communities is just a mess because there's nowhere for people to live. They're constantly having to leave their homes. Their homes are getting destroyed. Like the power grid is it's taking a huge toll on the power grid. It's just, it's so well written and so fascinating, extremely bleak, very sad. But I loved it and gave that 4 stars. I also just finished The Night We Lost Him by Laura Dave. Gave that 4 stars as well. That one was a super quick read, good mystery. This man is pushed off a cliff. That's how the book starts. You don't know what exactly happened, but you know he was pushed based off like the little tidbit it gives you in the first few pages, and then the rest of the book is like basically 2 of his children trying to figure out like what happened, because it looks as though he fell, but they don't believe that that's what happened. So like you're not sure.
All right. 17 minutes.
Thank you for giving me creative freedom.
You're welcome. Okay, we're going to start now.
Fine.
Just so you know.
Good. No animal questions.
Not right now.
We can do that in the next episode.
We sure can. All right. So today's case I am doing.
Right.
It is the case of I'm going to call it the case of the Ballard family. Ballard. All right. So with the Ballard family, this case starts in July of 2015.
Very recent.
Mm-hmm. So a woman by the name of Crystal Rogers, who was Tommy's boy. Right. Tommy Ballard's daughter.
Tommy Ballard's daughter was Crystal.
Right.
Got it.
So father daughter.
Right.
And of course there was a mother also. Like it was a family, but like the daughter was an adult.
Okay.
So she was a mother of 5, and she was last seen by her boyfriend Brooks Houck, Houck. Hawk.
I would say Houck.
Houck.
But Houck is a male name. I've never heard of Houck as a male. Oh no, that was not
the last name?
Oh yeah, then definitely Houck.
Houck. Okay.
Did you ever see the movie Driving Miss Daisy? Houck
No.
is it's a freaking fantastic movie. It's beautiful. 80s, I want to say. You wouldn't like it, but
Okay.
I love it. Loved it as a child. Love it still. Very heartwarming story. Jessica Tandy. Anyway.
All right.
Freeman.
So, yeah. All right. So, July 2015, like I said, Crystal Rogers, she vanishes without a trace. She's the mother of 5, last seen with her boyfriend, or by her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, the night of July 3rd. And so she goes missing, and it looks as if she had just disappeared. And from day one, her parents suspected foul play. They just felt like something was very, very off, and, you know, they just could not shake this feeling. So one of the things was that Crystal's family was not very fond of Brooks, who was Crystal's boyfriend. Now, they lived together. They had one son together, but Crystal had 4 kids already.
So the child she shared with him was the youngest.
Yes.
Got it.
And I believe he was 2 years old.
Uh-huh.
So Crystal's family wasn't very fond of Brooks because he seemed to treat her 4 other children differently than he treated the one that was biologically his. In terms of like monetarily, like if they would go to the grocery store, he would buy food for that one, for his child, but then like hers would have to go on a separate kind of bill. And from researching this and from listening to different podcasts, people kept making the same point, which is because some people were saying like they understand, you know, when you're in a blended family, like money things can get a little complicated sometimes, and especially if it's like 4 kids coming in to a new marriage, or well, this wasn't even a marriage, but a shared home or whatever. But Brooks was from a very affluent family, so like money wasn't necessarily any type of issue. So I guess, you know, a lot of people made that point where it was like they weren't like struggling to get by, and so he was really pinching every penny. It was just, it seemed more like a choice of what he was doing. Yeah.
Exclusion.
So anyway, it was just a very hard distinction like drawn between the 4 previous children and then his one biological son. So from what I gathered, the day or night that Crystal disappears, Brooks says that they drove out to his family's farm. And this happened in Kentucky. I don't know if I said that or not.
You didn't.
Okay,
Thank
Kentucky. So he says they drove out there. I guess they fed the cows, which sounds very nice to me. They made a bonfire, and then they basically just hung out before they went home. But this is like 10, 11 at night. And they also had their 2-year-old with them, which is an odd time, I feel like, to be just hanging out with a 2-year-old. Like,
I mean, he could have been put down to sleep and then slept the rest of the way in the car.
Maybe.
If they like needed him to sleep in the car. I mean, I feel like.
And I know nothing about that lifestyle.
Same.
But I'm just saying, I don't know. I picture children going to bed at like 7, not 11. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But so anyway, this is what he says. Then he says they get home. Brooks then reported that he and the son had gone to bed, and Crystal stayed up to play a game on her phone, and that was the last time he saw her. So the next day, when she's not there, he says that in the past, it wasn't completely unusual that if Crystal was angry about something or whatever, she would spend the night at one of her cousin's houses, whose name was Sabrina.
How often was she getting mad? That she's
not too often, because Sabrina came forward and said, like, this is completely not factual. Like, she's come over twice and she stayed for a few hours.
Not overnight.
No. But
so, liar, liar, pants on fire.
Right. But Brooks is saying that this is like a normal thing. Anyway, so Brooks is making it sound like, this is a normal thing. And, oh, yeah, like she'll disappear. Not disappear, but she'll go to this cousin's house for a little while. And, so
Cool
not
off.
a big deal. Right. So I guess he hadn't alluded to any big type of argument at first, but
Then he created one.
I guess. I mean, he just, like, whatever. Yeah, it was just like, oh, yeah, she's probably over there, whatever. The other thing that was very odd was that he wasn't the one to report her missing.
I was just going to ask you, when did he report her missing finally? Well, he didn't.
Right. So basically what happened was Crystal's oldest daughter.
How old?
I don't know actually how old she was,
Yeah.
but old enough to realize her mom was missing.
And to call.
Yes. Well, she called her grandmother. So she called Crystal's mom and said, hey, I can't find mom. Have you heard from her? The grandmother said no, but it was pretty unusual for Crystal not to respond to text messages or phone calls. So a few hours went by, and then the daughter called the grandmother again and was still like, I don't know, she's not answering, she's not responding, blah, blah, blah. And that's when Crystal's mom knew that something was not right. And between her and her husband, Crystal's father, they were the ones that decided that they were going to get the police involved because they had contacted Brooks. And like I said, he seemed pretty unfazed about the situation. And they were like, well, we should report her missing. Because I think at this point it had been over 24 hours then.
So even with what he said, if it was true, she still should, according to him, she should have been back by then. And was not.
Well, according to Sabrina, the cousin, she only stayed a few hours. He was saying she would spend days there.
Oh, days.
And that's when the cousin said, like, no, that's not true.
Happened.
Right.
Yeah.
But he seemed unfazed by it and was like, okay, well, if that's what you think you should do, then yeah, like, go report her missing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what they did.
Fine, we will.
So now...
Which, if I could just stop you, which if you think about it, though, is still, like, obviously this whole thing is strange, but, like, it's like if you and I went on a trip and you leave, whatever the circumstances, you're not there, you don't come back, I'm the one on the trip with you. I call your parents or not even, I guess, they would have had to call me and be like, he's not responding to anything. And I'd be like, oh yeah, well, he didn't come back, but I'm not worried. And then they're the ones like, okay, well, we're going to call it in though. Like, they're not even with you. You know what I mean? Like, her parents weren't even the ones there. He was the last one to be with her. And he's not the one freaking, even with their
The parents did live in the same town, though. They all lived in this tiny little town, just so you know.
Okay. But still.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
So like I said, she disappears on the 3rd, or the last time Brooks says he saw her on the 3rd, the evening of the 3rd. Now we're at July 5th. So 2 days later, Crystal's car is now found along the Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown, Kentucky, which is the town that they lived in, specifically located near mile marker 14.
I imagine that's important.
Well, not necessarily, but I said that because of how you thought that all the automotive places kept car trackers on everyone's car.
We went on a recent trip and how we called 911. Did I tell you about this?
No.
And they asked about the mile markers during the 911 call. And I was like, oh my God, here we effing go. God love Ashley. She freaking rattled it right off. She remembered in the 7 seconds of what we saw, she remembered everything. I got the color of the car wrong. I got pretty much everything wrong, or I just didn't know. So, yeah. Anyway.
But anyway, so she had a red Chevrolet Impala, and they noticed that, like one of the tires was flat. No, well, sorry, almost flat, but still drivable. So one of those tires, like I said, was specifically low on air. There was in the car, her keys, her purse, and her cell phone were all still inside. All things that nobody is just leaving their car. Even if they had to walk somewhere to get help, they're not taking their keys, their purse, or their cell phone. So
nice, though, for what year this was in 2015. Like, I'm hoping you're about to say, well, I probably not because the phone was sitting there. But I was, well, maybe before. I was going to say at least with the phone still left behind, they could hopefully see any recent messages, any incoming, outgoing calls. Where did her phone ping? Obviously, we know where it ended up with the car, but I'm thinking prior to the car coming to a stop, like where did it ping? Maybe, hopefully, they can find all that out.
Maybe, hopefully. So her brother, I think, was the one that came across the car, like when he was driving around looking for it. So his name was Casey. And he had noted something, that the driver's seat was positioned really far back than she would typically have had it, suggesting that somebody else might have been driving the car, somebody taller perhaps. And Casey also really found it hard to believe that she would have pulled over on the parkway, which is like the highway, and wouldn't have waited like to get off the highway to stop the car, because like I said, it was still drivable. And I think she's actually been in that situation once or twice before and had done that. Like she had driven until she was off the highway with a flat or semi-flat tire and then called for help. So he just found that this odd, that he basically stated she didn't drive this car here. Like that was his quote.
Do we know the height difference between Brooks and her?
I don't.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
from the pictures, he seemed to be quite taller.
Yeah.
So Crystal's family is very troubled by this discovery. And her mom, whose name is Sherry, you know, she believed that the car with this kind of like semi-flat tire was sort of staged just to throw off investigators completely. Because again, nobody believes that she would just leave all of these items. Like if all of that happened in real life, that she would just get out of the car and leave all these items there. Now things get stranger because, okay, so now her car is found and now the police are involved and people are being interviewed and all this stuff, and including Brooks is being interviewed. So Brooks is being interviewed, and the thing that was very alarming, not only to Crystal's family, but I think to like most people in general, is that so Brooks, he had a brother named Nick, and Nick was a Bardstown police officer at the time that this occurred. And Nick did something that raised a huge, huge red flag. So when Brooks is being interviewed at the police station by detectives, Brooks gets a phone call from Nick. And literally, you know, you can see this on the video because they were taping Brooks being interviewed. When he gets this phone call from his brother, he's talking on the phone to his brother, and basically Nick says to Brooks, don't answer any of their questions, just leave. Like, now I don't know that word for word, but the point of, because we couldn't hear what Nick said on the phone, but Brooks was responding like, oh, well, look, if you think I should just leave, then I will. I was just trying to help them out here. Like that kind of thing.
He's a saint.
So, and I guess Brooks repeated back to Nick, he's like, yeah, I know you've told me this before, that innocent people go to jail sometimes too. So just like weird sound bites that are coming from this phone call. And basically Brooks does end up leaving. And like I said, this is like a crazy ass thing for another police officer to do, to call mid detective interview to say, don't answer any of their questions and leave. Like, that's pretty damn suspicious.
I mean, I don't know if you're about to tell us like Nick was involved in this, but I'm thinking Nick is still a human. He's trying to protect his brother. If he doesn't for sure know what happened and he wonders like, shit, did Brooks do something to her? Like he's trying to protect his brother. I'm not condoning it, but I feel like he's a cop. He knows how this works. What he told Nick, or what he told Brooks wasn't untrue. Like if they're not,
none of it was untrue, but it was more like, I guess it was more just strange because Brooks wasn't under arrest or something. He should have been answering questions about his missing wife.
Absolutely.
So
to help, but
right. So for this other police officer to call and basically say, don't talk to them, protect yourself, they're trying to trip you up. It made the investigators pretty stunned that a cop would do this, especially, like I said, mid interrogation, I guess. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
So like I told you, Brooks did abruptly just end the interview after receiving that call. He basically shut up and left.
Was he nice and like, I'm going to have to actually leave now? Or was he like, you, I'm
No,
out of here?
he was pretty normal about it. Just like, okay, I'm going to go.
Right.
So then I guess the detectives then called Nick to say, like, all right, well, you know,
Thanks a lot.
well, law enforcement to law enforcement, like, you got to come talk to us and tell us, like, what are you, I mean, what is happening here that you're saying this? And he said no.
He wouldn't come and talk to them.
No. So then I guess the FBI gets involved because
They felt like he was tampering.
well, the police department didn't want it to look like they were tampering with something, so they wanted the FBI to come in separately from them to interview Nick.
Okay.
Like, make him
Right.
be interviewed.
Right.
So that it didn't look like there was any weird stuff
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
So they did come in, they gave Nick a polygraph test, and when he was being asked about Crystal's disappearance and the phone call that he made to his brother and stuff, and one of the examiners did report that Nick was being deceptive during the test. But again, I mean,
They're so
right.
unreliable.
I don't even know why we do them.
Agreed.
But anyway, that was just that. So, but if you're Crystal's family, I mean, this is going to raise a few red
For
flags
sure.
for you. So, like, they still are like, this is a complete cover up. Like, something is not right here. And Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, was like very gung ho about, like, we have got to find out what happened, which of course is a normal reaction. But like, he was just kind of like leading the charge on, what are we going to do? Like, you know, how are we going to continue to look into this? Like, blah, blah, blah. So Tommy quickly became the driving force in this search for Crystal. So he organized volunteers. He created a team Crystal community. So day after day for 16 months, Tommy and his family are just scouring rural Nelson County, which is where they lived, for any sign of Crystal. And Tommy never gave up. And sometimes he would physically be searching, like out in fields, out in woodlands and whatever. And if he wasn't, then he was like at home poring over maps and looking up tips on his computer and stuff like that.
Consumed him.
Yes.
Do we know if Brooks was also participating in the searching?
I don't think too much. And I guess he had promised his grandchildren that he would bring their mom home, and he never gave up on that. So Tommy's wife, Sherry, then, you know, she said that it wasn't just talk. You know, Tommy truly meant that he was going to solve his daughter's disappearance himself, even if he had to. So they're putting up flyers and billboards and even large roadside signs pleading for any information. And they, including, like, one sign that they put up was a large sign right across the Bluegrass Parkway where her car had been found, and it was displaying a photo of her and a tip line number. So obviously they are heavily, not intrigued, heavily encompassed. What am I trying to say?
Immersed?
Yes, heavily immersed in the search for Crystal.
Yeah. Do you have any pictures? I want to see what she looks like.
I don't. I mean, I've seen her, but I don't have any right here.
Okay, yeah. I just saw a picture. She's adorable. She looks like a little sweetie pie.
Yes. So anyway, like I said, he's just refusing to give up on this story.
Right.
So now we are in November of 2016, and it's actually November 19th to be exact. So now we're at 16 months after Crystal disappeared. So Tommy is like, he just needs a freaking break. Mm-hmm. Now, this was a family who enjoyed hunting. So he takes one of Crystal's sons, a 12-year-old grandson, out on their property to go hunting.
I'm nervous.
So they were on this land. It was adjacent to the Bluegrass Parkway. Again, not totally far from where Crystal's car had been found. So that morning, Tommy and his grandson park their truck in a field, and they're preparing to meet. They were going to meet other relatives who were also into hunting, and they were going to go deer hunting, like, for the day. So fine. So they're getting ready. Tommy is like scanning the tree line. I get, whatever. Looking for whatever one does for this
Activity.
markings on trees. I don't freaking know, but he's looking for this. And in an instant, out of nowhere, Tommy gets shot in the chest and dies. just instantly.
What? First of all, I thought you were going to say.
I know what you thought I was going to say.
No, not initially. First, I was going to say, I was thinking, oh my God, there's going to be like this poor family and everything that they just went through. Now there's going to be tragedy where like something goes wrong with one of the guns and her son, the 12-year-old, gets killed. Then I'm like, no. With where the location of this is, they're going to find her. Like, that's what it's going to be. They're going to find her skeletal remains and this poor boy and the trauma and how is he ever going to recover from this? Well, now his freaking poor grandfather was shot right in front of his face, murdered, I assume, because how interesting. Tommy won't let this go. He's pushing as hard as he is, and then he magically gets freaking killed, and a shot to the chest.
Yeah.
So I assume, all right, so, okay.
So, like I said, one shot, instantly dead. Tommy falls down.
The other relatives have arrived? Or
Nope,
is this,
they
the
have not
boy is
arrived.
alone.
Yeah. So his terrified grandson obviously runs over to him. Tommy was already unresponsive, killed immediately by this single mysterious gunshot.
It also makes me wonder, if Tommy and Sherry were still having contact with Brooks because of the youngest grandson who was Brooks' child. I'm just curious who knew that they were going to be out there, like these other family members. Who did they speak to? How did whoever did this to Tommy know that they were going to be out there at that moment,
Right. Well, and I don't think it was completely uncommon. Again, it was a small town. I think people knew that they enjoyed hunting and stuff. I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think it was an unusual thing for them to be doing either. So I think the mixture, it falls somewhere in between of like, yes, it was a specific thing you needed to know, but it also wasn't too hard to figure out, maybe. So yeah, it's just, I don't know how difficult that would be to get that information, but about when they'd be out there. But anyway.
Poor Sherry.
Yeah, so yes, and the scene was very shocking and heartbreaking because now this is the second tragedy that has affected this family in like, what, a year?
Exactly.
One moment they're just out hunting, and then the next Tommy is lying on the ground and his grandson is like standing over him. So police and emergency responders arrive and they found Tommy's hunting rifle, which was still unloaded and cold. So it wasn't like he accidentally shot himself or something. The grandson did not accidentally shoot him because, again, the gun wasn't even loaded. So it was immediately clear that this was no hunting accident.
Just plain devil's advocate, and I know nothing about hunting. I do not think this was an accident at all. I definitely think this was, like I said, Tommy, digging too deep and someone not appreciating that and taking care of Tommy. But the way hunting accidents go, technically, though, it could have been another hunter who just misfired and killed him, right?
Yeah, well, I think technically, but I feel like, I don't know, and this could be completely wrong, but I feel like the hunting community seems to try to be pretty damn responsible with that stuff.
Right, good call. And that this was like a hunting town. It's not like you would expect such a thing. It's not like it was this whole huge amount of like out-of-towners or people who just weren't that familiar. Yeah, good. And like I said, I do not think that's what happened. I mean, just the timing of this and that Tommy would not give up his search.
And I think that, they were dressed in proper attire, like fluorescent, so orange and things like that. So I think, it just seemed like it was definitely not a hunting accident. So news of Tommy's death spread very fast through Bardstown, and it hit the community pretty hard, especially because of how much of an advocate he was for his daughter. So now it's like Tommy is also gone, and his death seems to be pretty suspicious.
Oh, for sure. I don't think that was a coincidence at all.
And then
Trying to be silent, or they were trying to silence him.
Right, because it's like, who would have shot a guy with his grandson? I don't know. That's just...
And just the preciseness of that shot.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I was thinking like law enforcement, but I mean, really Hunter, which could be one and the same.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So
I'm so sorry, real quick. They also didn't kill the grandson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like one had the self-control, like almost made it more meaningful, if you will, of like, that's who they wanted. Like, they didn't need to kill the grandson, too.
No, they certainly didn't.
And they certainly weren't worried about him being a witness either. So whoever did this, I feel like they were carefully tucked away, that they weren't worried about being seen unless someone did see them.
Right.
We'll find out. I don't know.
You're correct. So, to the rest of the family now, this is still like unthinkable that this has just happened. And almost immediately they voiced what many people were thinking, that this was an obvious murder and that somebody did this to stop Tommy from continuing to ask questions about Crystal and try to find her. So in the weeks leading up to that day, Tommy himself actually had an uneasy feeling that he couldn't shake. And he had told this to Sherry, that he thought that someone was following him.
I'm so glad he said this to someone and that it wasn't like it didn't die with him,
Yes.
I'm serious.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
As he drove around the town. So in hindsight, Sherry was convinced that those suspicions were very accurate.
Hell yeah.
And she said, I think someone wanted my husband out of the way because we were getting close to Crystal and they knew he was the driving force behind her.
Well, buckle up. I hope Sherry took right the hell over. What, are they going to kill her next? Probably.
So, investigators now are digging into Tommy's death, and more evidence began to support the family's fears. Not long after the incident, a local witness came forward with an interesting detail. She recalled driving to work early that same morning, around 6 a.m., and seeing a car pulled over on the side of the Bluegrass Parkway near an overpass, and this car was parked in an emergency lane. The lights were off in a spot that it turns out was directly adjacent to the Ballard's property where Tommy was shot. So when Tommy's son Casey heard the description, he immediately recognized the area, and he said that it backs up to their farm. So basically, whoever was in that car would have had a very good lookout point and escape route if they were going to wait for Tommy to be out hunting.
So you're saying whoever was in this car was the lookout, or who did it?
Well, it could be both.
Yeah.
I guess there could be multiple people, but
but the location was close enough. Like,
they're
you could
calling
have
the
shot
location
him.
a lookout, meaning like it's a good vantage point to see what's going on and
the
to do
property.
something about it. Yeah, especially with a hunting rifle.
Of course.
I mean, yeah.
Distance, right.
Right.
Wait, I'm sorry. And we know that's what that's what killed him.
Yes.
It was a hunt. Okay.
Yes. So the witness said that she thought it was odd because of just, like I said, of the time and where it was parked. But obviously she wasn't thinking it was somebody waiting to murder someone else.
Of course.
But she was like, I knew that I saw something. If I had known, I would have stopped that morning. But I'm thinking, stopped.
She would have been offed.
That doesn't sound like a good plan. But she was like, I wish I could have prevented that from happening.
God love her. Probably haunted her forever.
So this report fueled the theory that maybe a getaway driver might have dropped off the shooter and was waiting on the parkway to pick that person up, like after they had made the shot. And there were also physical clues at the scene that also pointed to an orchestrated, intentional attack. So some law enforcement experts visited the Ballard family farm later. They noticed that there was something pretty strange at the edge of the woods. So a section of the brush and the thicket had been sawed down to create a clearing, almost like somebody had cut a window through all of the foliage. And Casey Ballard suspected that the killer might have done that to get an unobstructed view of his father while his father was out in the field with the grandson.
So premeditated. And that no one noticed this. Like, even the planning of having to do that to the brush, they needed to make sure they were doing that when nobody was around to see them. They you know what I mean? Like, they carried that out fine and had to put forth probably a lot of planning. Multiple people there on that property, making sure nobody was around, nobody would hear them, see them.
a veteran police officer. He had also agreed when he looked at it that this was a surveillance point, a spot from which somebody could secretly observe Tommy's like routine, which I know you had asked about that before. So I'm kind of wondering, and I don't know if this is something hunters do, but do they always take the same kind of path?
Good
you know,
call.
like I don't know, but maybe this person knew that. Like, let's pretend it was somebody that was close to the family.
Exactly.
And knew that Tommy was going to be hunting that day. Like, would he have the same route that he always has and that he just happens to pass right in front of this unobstructed view that somebody has now cut out of the forest to see? Like, you know. So they also discovered that not far from this, they saw a rifle's kickback mark on a tree, which I had no idea what that was, but it was basically like a scuff.
From the force.
Yes, that might be left if a shooter braced their gun against a tree trunk when they fired.
I know what a kickback is. I didn't know that was a thing that like you position yourself against a tree to absorb that. I didn't know that was a thing.
But
thought it just went into your shoulder,
right?
Some body part of yours,
right?
Or the air. I don't freaking know.
So after finding this and seeing like this stuff, like this premeditated kind of area,
pattern, yeah,
right, they were thinking that it was likely a sniper style ambush. And one of the ballistics experts told Casey that it's not an accident, it's an assassination of your dad. So early on, authorities were somewhat tight-lipped about officially labeling Tommy's death a homicide because for a time they didn't completely rule out the unlikely scenario of, like you had said, maybe a freak hunting accident.
Right.
So as I was telling you, all this evidence starts to continue to pile up, and it became increasingly clear that Tommy Ballard was deliberately killed. The why seemed obvious to the Ballards. Like I had said, it had everything to do with Crystal. And Tommy's son was quoted saying, "I feel like if they thought they got rid of him, everything would get brushed under the table because he was the main driving force. He was the one out there pushing it. And they thought, well, if I get rid of him, then everything's done. It'll shut everybody up." So that was what they were, thinking happened. So now, this is a little bit of a switch up again, back to the Crystal part of the story. Okay. But this part is freaking wild to me.
Well, I thought we just hit wild, so Lord
well,
knows
wild in a way
be.
Of being like making someone angry. I would like if you hear this, you'd be like, I can't believe this
like
person.
You get angry hearing this.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So now we're in July of 2017. So we're 2 years after Crystal has vanished.
And almost a year from when Tommy was
right.
killed.
So Brooks now, he has a new girlfriend.
I forgot all about him. I was so wrapped up in poor Tommy. I completely forgot about Brooks. I'm sorry, a new girlfriend.
He has a new girlfriend.
With a child on the way? Question mark.
I don't think so. Her name is also Crystal.
Oh, God. Classless. Poor taste, man. Poor taste.
So this new Crystal, she's caught on camera tearing down signs relating to the original Crystal about if information is known or if anybody's seen her, please call this number. Oh. So she's caught on camera ripping these signs down. Which,
with how you've repeatedly said in the story that you've emphasized how small of a town this is, I'd imagine they knew each other.
I don't know if they knew each other, but either way.
She sure as hell knows it's Brooks's missing wife or
girlfriend.
No, yeah.
So she gets arrested.
Oh, they arrested her for that?
And charged with theft by unlawful taking. And in September of 2017, she pleads guilty to the charges, and as part of her plea agreement, she was required to write a letter of apology to Crystal's mother. Oh. Wow. So anyway, when I heard that, I thought, like, you have to, what the heck? Like,
did she say, like, could you find anything of, like, what was her response to, what were you doing?
Nope. I have no idea why.
So she never once said, like,
not that
Brooks
I saw.
told me. Yeah.
No.
She acted on her own.
So I just wanted to, like, see, so what was Tommy exactly doing that somebody was getting so potentially upset about this that they needed to shoot him? So some of the stuff that I research that he was doing was that he, like I think I said this earlier, he was actively mapping out areas and gathering tips. He was also checking out inconsistencies in different witness statements. Like Tommy was talking to anybody who would speak to him, and over time he began noticing discrepancies in people's stories, particularly those surrounding Crystal's last known whereabouts and the days that followed. And he was keeping notes, and he was beginning to build a picture of what didn't add up.
You know, the other thing that just struck me, and that like people thought he was getting too close, it still makes me wonder if it was someone close to the family, because even if he's noticing that stories are starting to have inconsistencies, the people that he's talking to don't necessarily know that. So I'm curious, like, who was he talking to? And then who were they? Like, I'm assuming he's telling Sherry. I'm assuming he's telling Corey.
Casey.
Sorry, Casey. It's just making me wonder, like, who was that information shared with that shouldn't have had it? That they didn't know that. You know what I mean?
I do. He was also focusing heavily on where Crystal's car was found, and you know what about that area was significant. And like we had now discussed a bunch of times, you know, where her car was found was very close to their family's hunting land, and his death, little did he know. So it was just, he wasn't just like advocating, but actually like doing the work, you know, not just saying, hey, like, I hope we find out what happened type of thing. So the other thing that is a little strange about Bardstown, Kentucky, is that since 2013, there was like one murder every year that happened in this very small town.
I was just going to say, for this cutie little, well, I don't know if it was cutie, but I guess not if someone's getting murdered.
Yeah, I don't
year.
think so.
And did it say like, you know, hunting accident, robbery, home invasion?
Well, one of them
family drama.
One of them in 2013 was a police officer, Jason Ellis. He was ambushed on his way home from work. He stopped on an exit ramp to clear a tree branch from the road, and an unknown assailant shot him multiple times with a shotgun. So that was him. The following year in 2014, an elementary school teacher, Kathy Netherland, and her 16-year-old daughter, Samantha, were found brutally murdered in their home just outside of town.
They never caught who did it?
No.
Or the police officer who was killed?
No. So
it
seems like
very specific.
Pretty scary place. So the Kentucky State Police led this case initially, and later the FBI became involved. And the FBI even put Tommy's case on its seeking information list, and they offered a $10,000 reward for tips leading to the killer. They pointedly listed Crystal Rogers' case as related on the official poster, because basically at this point nobody's thinking they're unrelated. So despite that, though, for a long time there was no like public break in Tommy's murder, and it was just sort of left out there as like this unanswered question. So 7 years though goes by, and now we're in late 2023, and in October of 2023, so now it's nearly 8 years after Crystal Rogers went missing, the authorities made a pretty big announcement. They announced that Brooks was indicted and arrested for her murder.
So they had the grand jury investigating.
Yes.
Wow. So that was all going on behind the scenes.
So this was huge news, obviously. For the Ballard family. Brooks had maintained his innocence since 2015, but a grand jury had finally charged him and two other local men, a father and son, who were unrelated to Brooks. They were also indicted as co-conspirators in Crystal's disappearance. So as Brooks was arraigned in court, the prosecutor dropped an unexpected bombshell about Tommy's case as well. So the Commonwealth's attorney announced that investigators were actively examining a link between Crystal's murder and Tommy's unsolved shooting. In fact, this attorney revealed that they had recently obtained a firearm that might be the very gun used to kill Tommy. So this development was nothing short of jaw-dropping, obviously. According to the prosecutors, an informant working with law enforcement managed to purchase a rifle from none other than...
freaking Brooks' brother.
Yes, Nick. Now, I forget if I told you this. Nick had been fired as a cop.
No.
Well, he was fired for doing what he did. He was fired. Yeah.
So, okay.
And by doing what he did, I mean by impeding the investigation, not this other stuff. I'm talking about just that.
Prior to this all coming out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Nick had sold this gun using a fake name, but investigators did trace it back to him. And when they analyzed the rifle, they found that it was the same caliber as the one used in Tommy's killing, and it met 4 out of the 5 criteria for the ballistic match to the fatal bullet. So it was almost a perfect match.
Now, the fact that it wasn't, though, is that a leg for his defense to stand on, or was that something that could have just been like damaged in the process, or like something that, you know, rendered it inconclusive, but like kind of like how a DNA match is like 99.9%.
Right.
You know that means it's a match, but like it's not necessarily 100. Is that how this worked?
Well, I don't know because it's still going on.
Oh, shit.
So by early 2024, court documents gave further insight into this, and in a motion for a change of venue, because
Such a small town.
right, Brooks's attorney was arguing that there was no way that they were going to have a fair trial because of just how much this had been in the public eye of this small
what
town.
neutral jurors would you have? Yeah.
Right. So then as of now, the case still remains officially unsolved, even though many feel the answer is getting within reach. The FBI's reward offer still stands, and the Ballard family continues to urge anyone with knowledge to come forward. So the current status of the case, as it stands right now, for Brooks is that he was indicted September 2023 on charges of murder and tampering with evidence. His trial is scheduled to begin on June 24th, 2025.
Coming up.
In Warren County, Kentucky. The other man, I told you there were 2 other men involved.
Is that the picture that
Yes.
I commented on? Okay.
Yes. Joseph Lawson is one of those men. His trial is also scheduled the same time as Brooks. The other man, Stephen Lawson, which is Joseph's father, he faces charges of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence, and his trial is set to commence on May 27th, 2025, also in Warren County.
Oh, so even earlier.
Yes. And these trials were moved from Nelson County to Warren County due to what I said about those concerns. So I guess in literally this month of 2025, Stephen Lawson's defense requested additional DNA testing on 2 hairs found in Crystal Rogers' car, arguing that the results could be exculpatory.
How do you, though, prove that those weren't 2 hairs from a coworker she
Right.
drove
Well, yes,
home?
you're completely right, because the judge denied it and said,
Good.
like, there's no point in doing that. It's not going to prove anything, and it's just going to cause unnecessary delays.
Absolutely, which is probably what their plan was.
Yeah, probably.
I'm saying in terms of they knew themselves that those 2 hairs could...
Right. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Now, the last thing really to say about this is, and this was like, I was getting a little confused with this, but apparently a woman's bones or remains were found in this county. Of course, people are dropping like flies there. So,
Could be anyone.
right. And literally going off of what you just said, they never said it was Crystal. The closest they got was that it was a female between the ages of 25 and 82.
Oh my gosh.
And they gave like a potential height of like 5'2" to 5'10". So like you just said, pretty much literally anybody. So I kept going because like it was just weird because they weren't, and I don't know if this is something like they're keeping close to their, because I don't even know. I was trying to look up what they were saying like Brooks had done. What evidence did he tamper with?
Right. How did
I
he
couldn't
all of a
find
sudden-
any of this
yeah.
stuff. So I don't know if they're just keeping it really quiet because now we're about to find out. Like,
Once the trial begins,
Right.
and to try to keep it away from the public.
Yeah.
Well, and even like the evidence that the grand jury was able to indict him on. There were. Oh, also I was thinking with the remains, like you think that there would be dental records. Obviously, maybe there was no skull found, but if there was,
yeah, like I said, I didn't get a lot of information, but because at first I thought they had confirmed that it was her, but they haven't.
yeah.
So, but anyway, so that's the case that's happening. in real time, absolutely nuts. And, a tragedy with Crystal, obviously, and then pile on top with Tommy, just absolutely
horrific for the family.
Crazy. And hopefully maybe throughout this trial, family will get some type of closure. But I guess this will be one of those things where we'll have to like put a Google alert out
give an update,
to keep track of, because we don't normally have them
ongoing,
happening as we speak. But
and especially like this isn't winter of 2025, like this is coming up.
Oh yeah, well May 27th and June 24th. So yeah, that is the case of the Ballard family.
Well, you did a fantastic job. I was very sucked into this case. I've never heard of it, and very sad. This was a doozy for sure. Yeah, poor family, the Ballards.
I don't actually know the answer to this, but I hope the little kid is with the grandmother now.
That was crossing my mind too. Like, I don't think up until Tommy being indicted, I feel like he had that kid.
Yeah, no, the kid was with him up until, but I'm saying like now with the legal stuff, I don't know what happened after that. But so anyway.
And I wonder if he was even letting Crystal's family see him. Were the siblings able to see him? Like, I wonder if he was
Who the hell knows how that interaction was going? Because, I mean, I'm not saying that people don't have the opportunity to move on after something like that happens, but like when he has a new girlfriend who's ripping down missing people posters, you would imagine that the Crystal's family isn't overly chummy with what's going on, but who knows?
Who are we to say?
Right. So anyway, okay, well, I guess we'll catch everybody later.
Absolutely.
So until then,
as always, stay safe.
All right. Until then, and as always, stay safe and stay chill. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You've just listened to Chillworthy. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode. While we strive to keep our discussions engaging and lighthearted, we also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the real lives and events that are at the heart of these stories.
We try to approach each topic with a sense of curiosity and respect, fully aware of the impact these events have had on the individuals and their loved ones. Our goal is to honor their memories by keeping their stories alive and shedding light on the mysteries that surround them.
If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, and don't forget to join us on the next episode of Chillworthy.